Residents of Hougang and from all corners of Singapore, especially East Coast GRC. Good evening. It's so wonderful to be back here to speak to you. Now, during my house visits to East Coast GRC, a few residents have asked me what the opposition can do for them in Parliament. Some think we have only a few elected MPs. We can't get laws changed or prevent bad laws from being passed. We can only make speeches and hope for the best. I believe that our value as an opposition party is not just about taking up more seats in Parliament, making speeches. It's much more than that. First of all, if you elect a sizable number of opposition candidates into Parliament, it will send a signal to the PAP that all is not right with their policies and their attitude towards the people. On the other hand, if you give the PAP an overwhelming vote, they will take it that you strongly support their policies on manpower, on immigration, public transport, healthcare, and they can continue on the same path. Second, once we have a critical mass of capable MPs in Parliament, we would have the resources, time, and manpower to scrutinize government policies more closely, propose better alternatives, and put pressure on the government to implement those policies. We need enough MPs to be able to effectively examine the work of over 16 ministries, 66 statutory boards, and many other government organizations. Third, by sending a good batch of Workers' Party candidates into Parliament, you are helping to build a stronger and more credible alternative party that can form a bulwark against an incompetent government that may arise in the future. No governing party lasts forever. History around the world is filled with governing parties which started out well, but eventually lost the support of the people. The real political risk for Singapore is not an opposition that causes gridlock, but not having an alternative to the PAP if it fails the people. So, what are the policy changes we are pushing for in this election? I would like to invite you to read our manifesto entitled Empower Your Future. It is available for sale here at the rally, or you can download it from our website. It is 46 pages long and contains over 130 proposals for improving the lives of Singaporeans. Today, I will talk about one major economic proposal in our manifesto: the introduction of the national minimum wage. What is a national minimum wage? A minimum wage is the lowest salary that employers are legally allowed to pay their workers. A national minimum wage will apply the same wage floor across the country, instead of having it only apply to certain industries. The minimum wage is not a new concept. The first minimum wage law was introduced in New Zealand in 1894. And now most countries in the developed world have minimum wages, or some way of ensuring a wage floor. Why do we want to introduce a minimum wage in Singapore? There are many reasons, and I'll outline just a few today. First, we want to reduce poverty in our country. This is a basic responsibility of any government. There are now about 110,000 full-time employed Singapore residents who earn less than $1,000 a month. This is based on 2011 figures provided to me after I asked the Manpower Minister a parliamentary question. Ask yourself, can you support a family in Singapore with less than $1,000 a month? Well, let's look at the statistics. According to the government's household expenditure survey, the average monthly household expenditure for the poorest 20% of households is $2,230. This means that even if both parents in the household are working but earning less than $1,000, it is still not enough to cover their expenses. According to another government statistic which I obtained in Parliament, a family of 4 on average spends $1,250 a month just to pay for basic needs. I think most of us would agree that in the world's most expensive city, which is what Singapore is according to the Economist Intelligence Unit, it is unreasonable to expect a household to live on less than $1,000 a month. The second reason we are calling for a minimum wage is to encourage more people to join the workforce. There are currently many women and older persons who choose not to work because the wages they would earn are not able to cover costs like transport and childcare. So it is more worthwhile to stay at home and look after their children. This is an untapped labor pool for our economy, particularly at a time when we are faced with a labor crunch. If we can encourage more people to re-enter the workforce, it could help improve economic growth and at the same time reduce our dependence on foreign labor. Third, we cannot afford to wait much longer for productivity to rise before raising the incomes of our lowest paid workers. The PAP government set a target of achieving 2 to 3% productivity growth per year up to 2030. But what are the results? In the last 4 years since the last election, productivity growth has been close to zero or negative. In fact, a minimum wage could push employers to raise productivity of low-skilled jobs. It could incentivize them to provide better training for our low-skilled workers and introduce automation to help raise workers' productivity and match the higher wage levels. There are other reasons for introducing a national minimum wage, and there are many exceptions that are usually granted to reduce their negative impact on businesses. I do not have the time to elaborate on them in my speech, but the Workers' Party welcomes a national debate on this issue. We will be happy to address this issue in more detail during the course of this election campaign. A national minimum wage is just one of many proposals that we are pushing for in Parliament, if you elect us as your representatives. Our goal is not to oppose for the sake of opposing. We will not oppose everything the government is doing, but we will work with the government to identify better solutions and put pressure on them to implement those solutions for the benefit of Singaporeans. Fellow Singaporeans, we stand at a critical moment in our history as a young nation. We are no longer a developing country that is struggling for survival. We have achieved a high level of economic development due to the hard work of our pioneer generation and many others that have followed, and our commitment to work together despite our differences. Yet there are segments of our population that have not reaped the full benefits of our economic growth. We need to do more to uplift the lives of these fellow citizens so as to create a more equitable society and dynamic economy. The Workers' Party has and always will stand on the side of Singaporean workers and their families. Please support us in this election so that we can continue to push for more compassionate and sound economic and social policies. Vote for the Workers' Party. Vote to empower your future. Thank you.